That was weird. OK, I'm going to go full screen. OK, that's better. So I'm Soledad, super Sole in Twitter, which is like even super than just Sole. I work at Mozilla. You might have heard about Firefox OS. This is this operating system that was started about 3 years ago. And it kind of like, I guess it was kind of like a joke. Like, can we just put Firefox on a phone and just have an entire operating system built with JavaScript? And this joke kind of like grew. And today, we're in 29 countries, and there are 14 global operators. That means you can just go to a normal shop, go buy a Firefox OS phone, and you get out of there with this phone that runs in JavaScript. Like, I think this is really amazing. And obviously, we've learned a lot of things during those 3 years. But we were like, yeah, like being in 29 countries and like being able to just having physical shops where people can buy your phone, maybe it's not good enough. So, like, no big deal, right? Like, the whole operating system is written with JavaScript, and it just works, but maybe that's not enough. So we're like, how can we just, like go even farther enough than this? And how do you come up with better ways to, like, go further? So obviously, we ask ourselves, like, how do we go further? And we brainstorm, as like creative agencies do. And the way we did this thing was like everyone in Mozilla could just like sit down for a month, make as many groups as they wanted to make, and investigate whatever they wanted to research to make Firefox OS better. So some people focus on pet peeves, and other people focus on other things. So essentially, there were like 15 or more groups. I just stopped counting, and there wasn't any, like, it wasn't an ordered list, so I didn't really. So it was like 15 groups, and you could be like more than one at the same time. Maybe you were interested in a number of different alternatives. Like, it didn't really matter. It was totally free, and we got like lots of ideas, obviously. And some of them were like really, really obvious, because when you have a project that's been running for 2 or 3 years, like even when you have a project which has been running for a month, there are lots of things you hate already about the project. So when you have this thing which is 3 years, and there's this huge number of people who've worked on this project, there's so many things you want to change. And for example, streamlining the build system. When this thing was started, there wasn't any clear winner about like package management system. So there wasn't any Bower or NPM. Like, they were there, but they were not the winners. So they came up with something which would use Joule and the XPC runner and Makefiles, and that's how it works nowadays. And the issue we had is like when you try to onboard people with Firefox OS, they look at the system and they're like, you're using Makefiles? What the fuck? This is JavaScript. So we are like, hey guys, we need to fix this. And like the old school hackers are like, Makefiles are fine. And we're like, no, it's not. So we have this tension. And so there is this. And then also within the code structure, because we didn't have any package dependency system, they made a thing called the share folders. So you put all the shared content there, and then when you compile the thing into a system that you build into the phone, they copy things from that folder. I mean, that's the dependency system. And if you come from an NPM, you're like, hey, that's not good. Like, there are things that are better. So that was another option. And also deliver more polish. Like, when this thing was started, it was like, can we make this thing with JavaScript? Yes. But now it's like, can we make it look as good as native apps? Because it's like, OK, native is better. So there is this project for delivering more polish, which you can actually do if you do things right. But we were not maybe doing enough. And that's good. But obviously, if you know me, I'm not into like sensible things. I'm into riskier ideas. So I really like other concepts where I believe it more edgier. Like, how can you rethink smartphones so they are less intrusive? So they are not this little screen which is yelling at you, look at me, I've got this notification that you need to look at, you have a new DM. So how can you make a smartphone be more like this thing that makes you more productive and more useful, instead of being this thing that distracts you from your nowadays task? Also, there was another one which was really cool. Like, suppose you are in this family where only one person has a data plan, and everyone else is using pay-as-you-go. If this person with the data plan downloads the system update, why do everyone else have to download the whole thing? Couldn't just use Wi-Fi and deliver the same update to everyone? Because they are all using the same system, and all of them have Wi-Fi capabilities. And then also this other one, which is interesting, how can you have context-aware phones? Some kind of phone that says, now this user cannot really pick this phone call, or you cannot really deliver messages now because this is not the right moment. Because I'm noticing that this person is biking now, so maybe you don't want to start sending vibrations and things to this person. Or you can detect that the phone is like super quiet, so maybe the person that owns the phone doesn't need to be interrupted right now. So this was like a number of ideas that were like, oh, okay, that's interesting. This is way more interesting than the usual, just add more megabytes and more megahertz and more everything. But the idea that I really liked most was the peer-to-peer web. And it was kind of related to this thing about sharing content between phones using Wi-Fi. The whole idea is that if you think about this, like, well, this is the slogan, drop the web, surf local. And I use this surf kind of like typography, which was like really rockabilly and 50s. If you think about this, when you send data between devices, you generally have to send the data to the cloud and back. Like, you want to, like, it happened to me. I needed to take the video out of my phone, and people were like, just use Dropbox. And I was like, why should I use Dropbox? I just have the phone here, and the computer is here. Why do I need to use Dropbox to connect things together? This is stupid. So the devices are like side by side. Why do I need to tell Dropbox about my things? Seriously, why? But obviously, for some companies, even if we think we don't need a cloud, for them, it's the business model. I don't know what they do with the data. I don't even want to know, but definitely, I mean, Mozilla, we don't care about that. We don't want to data mine you. And what we actually care about is that you control your data. So when I was looking at these peer-to-peer things, I was like, well, actually, this is really cool. There was one where you could just like have two phones, and they would set up an ad hoc network between themselves, and you could share files. Like there was this guy sending pictures of his child to some other phone. There was another one that was like, one of the phones would be emulating a Sega Mega Drive in JavaScript, and you could play columns between another friend, and you were like connected like automatically. And there was this other one which was about discovering devices. So you can connect to other devices that uses Wi-Fi Direct, which is something they use in Taiwan and Japan and all those things. So like, this is all written in JavaScript, and it's just like working on phones. This is so cool. This is so exciting. And I was like, I want to do cool stuff like right now. But for once, I had the good sense of saying, okay, what do you actually want to do? Just don't go too far before thinking. So I, for once, sat down and thought, okay, peer-to-peer is social. And all the things I've done so far are like really antisocial. So making things that are social is going to be a challenge. Like I did things for playing music with MIDI or with web components, but it's always me, just one person. So making something which is social is a challenge. And then there is this other thing that people say like, oh, JavaScript is a toy language, and you cannot make anything serious with JavaScript. So I was like, okay, that's another challenge. I need to do something serious, but it's still playing with the idea of toys. And then if you know me, you know that I love music. So I was like, okay, I need to do something which is social, and it's kind of like a pun or a play on toys, and it has to be made with JavaScript, and also has to be musical. So musical toys, of course. So toys are social, like by their own nature. Maybe you want to start playing on your own, but maybe when you see other people play, they want to do the same thing you're doing. So it's kind of like this learning by playing thing. And then we don't need internet. Once you get the toys, you just need to play. This is not like a PS4 that you need to download 3 gigabytes before you get to the loading screen. This is like the toy is here. And then if you do this thing right, you can keep the toys after, which was really cool. Like I can go and share my toys with you, and using service workers, you can keep them. And I think this is really neat. So I was super excited. I was like, yes. So I was like, this is beyond cool. Like, I'm going to form a band, and I'm going to transcend laptop musicians. Like, all those people that were on stage, like, kind of like doing like they were playing, but they were just like using Messenger, forget about them. It's going to be even better. We're going to be the disconnected ensemble. And it's going to be disconnected because we're just using the phones, and we don't even need the internet. So we can go play in the underground or wherever there is no connectivity. So how do we make it happen? Well, there is just a plan, obviously. It's just 4 steps plan. The first is to make the musical toys. Then we put them on a device. We share them by making them available, and then we play music and have fun, which is easy. So I'm going to tell you how to perform these 4 easy steps to success. The first one is making the musical toys, which consists in, its toy is going to be 2 parts, because, like modularizing is good. So the first one is the web audio-based audio node, and the second one is web component-based UI. The way, I don't know if you know about web audio, I'm just going to go super shallowly over. It's modular, so you can make your own module and connect it with other modules that other people have made, and it's just going to work. So this is an example of how a web audio graph works. And so you have little boxes that you can connect together, and they end up in the destination, which is the speakers. So in this case, we're going to make one source of sound, which is going to be a toy. And we can connect it with other standard web audio things, which is the good thing when you do things modularly. So let's say one toy, or one box, or one audio node. I'm using this pattern that I came up with in another project I'm working on, which is called Open Music. So the idea is that you send me an audio context in the constructor, and I'm going to return you an audio node that you can connect. And that's due to the way the web audio works right now. You cannot really extend native audio nodes, so you have to make a little trick. But this is working well so far. And people who are writing the spec say that this is OK, so I hope they're OK with that. So for example, if you want to use a theremin that I wrote, you just make a new audio context, send in the audio context here, and then you can just use this thing as you would use any other JavaScript object. So it's pretty obvious. And there are the properties for this object. And then the web component is kind of like the same thing. It's the thing I found that works better for representing instruments in the screen. And since audio nodes have properties and also have event listener, events, you can make this to build the custom elements, so the things are in sync. So custom elements, I don't know if you heard about them, but they let you define new types of elements. So you can make things like the Open Music theremin UI. Web components need to have a dash, and I overdo it by having 2 dashes here. So that's the standard. And it kind of works well, because we have kind of prefixes. So you can create them, and they become this new thing that you can create with create element and app and child. They're just DOM elements. So you can just insert them in your UI and just use them. And then the only special thing is this attach to method. This is my own defined pattern. So what you do with attach to is you set up listeners on events that happen on the audio node, and then you also set up, or you add listeners for things happening in the custom element. So when you interact with the thing, it sends things to it sends events and orders and instructions to the audio node. And likewise, if the audio node has to tell you, hey, I'm finished playing, or I'm in this new weird state, you can represent this thing, so everything kind of gets in sync. And also, the other good thing is that because this is so decoupled, if, for example, you have a better UI element, which is not hard because I'm really bad at writing UI stuff, you can just replace it with your own theremin UI. Or if you have another similarly looking theremin kind of instrument, you can use the same UI to control the thing. You just say attach to that other element, so that's cool. Or you could just use the audio node elsewhere. You don't even need to use the UI. You can just if you want to include my theremin in your project and make spooky sounds, that's great. You can just use it, and it's just normal web audio code. So there's nothing too specific, too peer-to-peer specific so far. This just works in modern browsers. And that's great, because that maximizes our usage of the technology. So that's step 1. Then we go for step 2. And for putting toys on a website, what you do? This is normal things that work on a browser, so we just make a static website. And this is how it looks like nowadays. It's really a work in progress thing. So when you get to this website, we just click on a button, and we get instruments. So that's easy. Again, nothing peer-to-peer specific. It works everywhere. And then for making toys available, what do you do with a website? You put the website in a server, right? So we need a server. And the problem is that I want this thing to work in phones. I don't want to be carrying my laptop and going somewhere to make a gig and say, OK, here's the laptop, here's the server. I want to just have phones and kind of get them everywhere. So the issue is that we cannot really make a server using normal browser toolkits and instructions. But Firefox OS apps have superpowers. And this is where we get into the Firefox OS Landlia. So the kind of superpower we need is the TCP socket, and I'm having this most thing here because it's prefixed, but it's just a TCP socket, kind of like object in JavaScript. So with TCP sockets, we can actually write a web server, which is like the technology we need. And luckily, so we just need to bundle the static website with web server and into a Firefox app, and then we install it on the master device, which is going to be this Nexus 4 phone. I'll tell you about that later. And so luckily, someone had already written a web server, so I didn't need to do it. So it's just kind of like Express, but it works with Firefox, so it's like using the TCP socket thing. And it's pretty easy to use. I'm also using Browserify, so it looks like Node. So I'm just requiring the web server, and I make a new web server, and then in the AT port, so that it's pretty standard. And then you say server.start, and it starts. But we're not listening to anything yet. We need to listen to the requests. So we just like set up a listener. This is really, really web-like. It's not using the on blah that Node does. So you just use the request path to know what to respond to your request. The problem is that this server is so simple, it doesn't really parse anything, so we need to do it ourselves. So for example, for route parsing, because we're just delivering static content, if you ask me for something that ends with a slash, I'm just going to give you index.html. And if you ask me for something that doesn't end with a slash, I'm just going to give you the contents of the resource. So I'm just going to give you index.html or JavaScript or whatever I'm going to return you. So, but before we return anything, we need to tell the browser, hey, you're going to receive this thing, and this is this type of this thing. So it knows how to parse things. And I'm using this very naive method where I just say, OK, if the extension is HTML, this is text HTML. If it's JPG, this is image JPG. You could get fancier, but this works. So I'm just going for simple. And for serving, you just say, OK, this is the headers. Get the content type with the function we made, and we just send the file, which is another utility method. What this actually does, it does an XML HTTP request in the server to itself, and then picks the content and throws it back to the other. It's a hack, but it's a cool hack that works, so that's cool. So the thing is that, OK, we've got this phone, and we want to serve it to this other phone. How do you do it? You need to know the IP address. So one way you can find IP addresses in Firefox OS is you go to Settings, you go to Wi-Fi, Available Networks, Current Network, and then you tap again, and you get the IP address, which is cool. Some developers say that's fine. I don't think that's OK. Then we also have the Wi-Fi manager. So that's another object that you can get in Firefox OS. And then it lets you access properties of the current connection. So you can get the name of the network and the IP address. So you can show that on the screen. And then if this is this phone, which is, you can get that thing delivered to this by just copying the IP address, like entering the IP address in the other phone and getting the thing delivered here. But, you know, typing IP addresses is like the most boring thing in the world. Like, it still is on a computer, and that's actually my gift. I mean, my hand trying to type this thing in a phone. But in a phone, it's like unbelievably cumbersome. It's like, whenever I had to do tests and things, like, I need to type this IP address. I hate this thing. It's so slow. How can we make this thing easier? Well, it turns out that you can use this thing called NFC that I think all phones have, but no one actually uses because it's kind of like gross to have somebody else's phone touch your phone. So I've always got this thing disabled. But in this case, I was like, well, actually, this could be a good idea because I could just send a small piece of data between this device and the other. And for example, I actually have access to Web NFC, so I can control NFC using Firefox OS. So phones that know how to NFC know what to do when they get a URL. Like when you send a piece of data, you say this is a URL. And when they get a URL, they navigate to the URL. So it's like, what if this server tells me, this is my URL when I touch it. So I just need to type in. I don't need to type in the address anymore. So that would be the solution to my issues with IP addresses. And the cool thing is that this is a standard. I'm not doing anything weird. So there is support for this in Firefox OS, in Android as well, and iPhone 6 could work. But Apple are keeping the chip to themselves so they can do payments. So whatever, Apple, whatever. So I think it's time for demos. I don't even know which time is it, but I'll just show you. So let me show you things. I need to fire up the photo booth thing. I hope it works. Cool. Now I need to find the cursor, which is here. Okay, so right now my demo is like a really, really work in progress thing. I actually don't have as many things as I would like to have, but I think it's going to be cool to show you this. So right now, these two phones are using this ad hoc network, which is served by this other phone, which is an Android phone. I'm making sure that everything's correct. So this is the FireSpot server, or router, or whatever. This other phone is on the FireSpot hotspot, and this is the server. Also, this is a Nexus 4. So it's a root Android phone, and it's got Firefox OS installed. So you can, like, you don't really need to buy a Firefox OS phone. You can hack this thing into other existing phones. And this is a Flame device, so this is also in the FireSpot network. So I'm just going to open my disconnected ensemble app, which is here. I hope you can read mirrors. So here's the Wi-Fi address and the network information, and we'll get the messages of the requests here when we get them, and NFC is enabled, and everything's up. So the funny thing is that here's a web server, and these two are, I hope they have NFC enabled. So when I touch this thing, I'm going to try to make it, hopefully this will work. Wow, yeah, there we go. And actually, okay, so if I press this thing, I got the termin. Well, you cannot really hear it. Well, you can. And the cool thing is that because this is a standard, and if it works, hopefully it works. This is my other phone, and hopefully it's, yeah, it goes. There we go. So the weirdest thing is that this is this hotspot, and it's using this thing, so it goes through itself to serve things. It's so weird. But yeah, I've got this thing working here as well, and yeah, I've got the terminal as well here. So I think it's pretty cool. Like, when I did this thing, actually, I think this is not that impressive. When I did this demo, I actually started with just making sure that this worked with other thing, which is funnier. So I made this thing where you have a cat server. Wait, stop doing things. Okay, I think I just broke something, but I just kill it and open again. Okay, please give me cats. Cats. I want cats. Please send cats. Whatever. I don't know. I've never tried to do the two servers at the same time, so maybe something's broken. But essentially, I can deliver you cat gifts with like touching phones. And everyone was super excited in the office, like sending cats to each other. But yeah, anyway, let me kill this thing. So that was a demo. It's like really work in progress. I need to do way more work. Like, this is my part of the to-do ideas list. Like, I want to do more toys, because right now this 30 minutes is kind of like really shitty, but I'm not really good at UIs, so I need to get better at that. I want to do a drum machine and like a bass, and have this thing play with in sync, like, so you have a global BPM and it's like boop, boop, boop. And I also want to be able to control the speed from the master device to say, hey everyone, now we're going to play a slow one. So it was like boop, boop. So for that, I need to implement a WebSocket server, and I also have access to the GDP socket, so I can actually send sockets like updates to everyone, and it's going to be like really low latency. And I need to use service workers so you can keep the toys when we are done. And also, maybe it might be interesting to store and share presets when there are like more presets that you can actually store. And it would be also cool to be able to discover the devices around. You can use this thing called MDNS, so you can find devices around you, and with Firefox OS. Also, if I can send you my touch and input events, you can record that thing, and then we can maybe upload this thing with Wave and MP3 to Bandcamp, and we can get rich. Also, maybe we want to set up everything with Wi-Fi Direct, so I don't need to have this hotspot like running around. And also with UDP sockets, again, we can maybe control other MIDI devices. So maybe we can use MIDI devices over the network. I don't know how that's going to work, but I just got ideas, and I just wanted to keep them. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure by the time I get to the second idea, I might have like 10,000 more in this list. So I don't know, just talk to me if you're interested in how this weird thing, I can show you the cuts later if you come around. Or just don't talk to me, actually. Just go and grab pieces of that. And I'm collecting I tell you, there will be cuts. I'm collecting the URLs and things in this repository, and thanks. I will just publish the slides later, but yeah, thanks.